I want to throw out some names, great black entrepreneurs, and I want you to tell me first thing that come to mind.
Okay.
First, if you met them in person, interviewed them or whatever, you got a story, I love that. But first thing come to some of them I already asked you about, but I just love hearing it anyway, multiple times. And then ask if you got anybody you want to throw in, feel free to jump in. So first one, because I know this is a good one. Reginald F. Lewis.
Reginald F. Lewis. So,
this is a good story.
When
he leaned back.
Well, both of you know I broke that story, the TLC Beatrice deal for Black Enterprise. That was like my first big story that transformed me from being a journalist to a business journalist. And so the cover for the book, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? That photo shoot is from our photo shoot that I was physically at for the cover for that issue.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't know that part.
November 1987 issue. That was an outtake from our shoot because we were the only ones that had photos of him at that time. So I went to that shoot to build a rapport with him because I got assigned this story to do on what was then the deal of the year. It wasn't the TLC Beatrice deal; that hadn't happened yet. It was him selling McCall patterns for a 90-to-1 return. And back then, Black Enterprise did an annual cover story at the end of the year called the Deal of the Year. That was the story. I got the assignment, and I'd been at BE for maybe 4 months at that point. So I didn't know anything about leverage buyouts. They had to give me like a crash course on all that stuff. So they sent me down to the photo shoot, which is down on Wall Street, and we're talking, and I asked Mr. Lewis, so what are you going to do next? And he just stopped. And I'm thinking, did I curse? Did I ask what you were going to do next, Mr. Lewis? He was like, I've been interviewed by business journalists from every major business publication around the world. Not one of them asked me, what was I going to do next? And he didn't say this, but I've said it. I believe the implication was, the brothers, this is his 15 minutes of fame. We ain't going to ever hear from him again. This is not the beginning of something, this is the end of something. And so he's like, so that, in my mind, that's why. So then he said to me, he says, I'm working on a deal that's 10 times bigger than this McCall deal. I never talk a deal until it's done, but I'm telling you this. And I'm doing the math in my head, I'm going, 10 times? You mean $1 billion? He wouldn't say another word. I excused myself, hopped on the number 4 train back to the office of BE, and to my point earlier about if I was that fortunate I couldn't have done this. First went to Derek Dingle, who's the current chief content officer, but then was senior editor. We gotta flip the covers because our November cover story was already in the can. It was our executive of the year story on Roy Roberts, who was the highest ranking executive at General Motors at the time. I was like, shift that story to December. Something's gonna happen with this Reggie Lewis thing. And then we both went up to Mr. Gray's office. Mr. Gray's, we want to shift the covers, we want to flip the covers. So we flipped it, the TLC Beatrice deal broke, and I was the only one that had a scheduled interview. And that's how we got that scoop and got that story. And all the other media outlets was trying to get us to give us access to those photos. Like, not happening. We got yeah. So talk about black excellence. Reggie Lewis, man, and was down for the cause. I mean, he was a supporter of Jesse Jackson's presidential campaign runs. I mean, he was that dude, in so many ways. And for all the interviews he did, except one from then on until his passing, I had to do them. And when he had a problem with something that he didn't call Mr. Graves, he called me. Mr. Graves, don't talk to me, talk to him. So Reggie Lewis, that will always be. You can always ask me that. Tell us.
I love it every time, the first time.
That was the turning point in my career. I told Ash, I thought I was on my way to becoming the first black editor at GQ and Esquire because I love style and fashion and that stuff. And that was, I figured BE was just a stop along the way. Not that it was going to be where I spent my career.
Johnny Johnson.
Oh man, Johnny Johnson also was the man.
I just want to throw out Titans, icons, black business icons.
You got to understand, and you mentioned this earlier. Yeah, certainly, there's systemic racism. We got tons of obstacles as black entrepreneurs. But John Johnson built his stuff. Jim Crow was still, like the real Jim Crow was still happening.
You know what I tell people all the time about John Johnson? I said, how many stories, was that building on Michigan Avenue? Maybe 14 or
So, it was at least 14.
yeah, at least right. But I said if I build people excited about this building we in.
Right.
If I build a 14-story building on Michigan Avenue in Chicago right now today, I go viral.
Oh yeah,
I'm on the cover. I'm probably on somebody's cover. It's like
multiple covers.
yeah,
What?
Today.
Yeah. He did that. I can't remember what year that was, but remember he built his businesses in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. Wow. By the time he built Black Enterprise and Essence were both started in 1970. We're both celebrating our 50th anniversary. So John Johnson was their mentor. That's how long. John Johnson had been around so long. The first time I met John Johnson, again, my first year at BE, back then we used to bring all the BE 100 CEOs together in a city. And you know, this is way before virtual events and things like that. They would all come to one place, and they came to New York City when we had unveiled our list of largest Black-owned businesses. So can imagine John Johnson. That was the first time I met Reggie Lewis. He was a newcomer to the B100s. Percy Sutton, J. Bruce Llewellyn. I mean, the Cottrells, the Gardners of the hair care companies, like you talk about all in one place. Yeah. And I'm like 27 years old, like rolling. I'm like, what? Yeah. But the thing about John Johnson, he was so far ahead of his time that he with the possible exception of Percy Sutton, but Percy Sutton was New York and John Johnson was Chicago. He sat by himself on the bus, and people were like, "Why is he?" I said, "Because he has no peers." All, you know, to us, they're all the same because we're young.
Right.
To him, he's like, "Yeah, it's me and these young brothers."
Yeah.
That's how far ahead he was.
Wow.
That's how far ahead he was. Wow. And he had this thing. He's like, "You show up, I pay you. You show up, I pay you. So don't be late because you don't want to hear from me if I tell you the paycheck gonna be late."
Yeah.
He was but he was also very serious about his employees having the best. I never had this experience, but Derek Dingle, who actually interviewed him, he did the iconic John Johnson interview in June '87, the year before I did my iconic Q&A with Reggie Lewis. My second interview was a Q&A the following year. Their employee cafeteria, they had like lobster. They had like
I heard about that. I read about his book. They said he had a dining room in his office or something.
Yeah,
he had a floor, right? He had a whole floor of the building. Yeah.
Wow. So he was like, "No, my people," and I think Mr. Graves kind of got that. Like, no, black doesn't mean substandard. This is this is how we do this. And which is why people at Ebony were so loyal. We'll say there would be the average turnover would be for most years. People stay at least 7 years. That's unheard of in the magazine business. Yeah. I thought it was going to be 2 to 4 years. I was going to be out. Man, look at me, 33 years in now. They still can't get rid of me. But that's about the culture. It's about the culture you build. Yeah. So John Johnson, man, he was something else.
Let me ask you about one of the ladies, right? In your field in media, Kathy Hughes.
Kathy Hughes is a great example of what we were just talking about. Her being able to think beyond what people could think for her and where her background was. So remember, the birth of who she became as an entrepreneur was the creation of the Quiet Storm. She originated that format when she had the station at Howard. Alfred Liggins is her son. They used to sleep on the floor of the radio station because they lost their home. They couldn't. So people look at people like Kathy Hughes, and obviously she's rich,
rich, wealthy.
But and Dennis Kimbrough talks about this in The Wealth Choice too, which is why that's an important book for people to read. Nobody wants to hear about her as a single mother and with a child deciding what I'm going to do is sleep on the floor of this radio station. That's what I'm going to do. We talked about what we're not willing to let go. No, I can't be evicted from my house. Right. I can't have a bad credit score. Right. She's like, I got no credit score. Right. I have no house. And how many people say you're a bad mother?
Right.
This child should be taken from you. Yeah. Because how could you be sleeping on the floor of this radio station? Yeah. And she spoke at the Women of Power Summit for Black Enterprise, and she talked about she said she got turned down, I think 32 times for a loan. Wow. 32 times. Wow. And kept going back going back till somebody finally said yes. How many people, like, I can't be quitting my job. If I quit my job to start this business and I get turned down once, I'm going back to look for a job.
Right.
You know, because
up somewhere.
You know, so when you look at Kathy Hughes, I told you, you don't understand her. If you only think of her as the person that does interviews on TV One, the one-on-one, which she had that series, you don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
You need to hear her whole story, because I mean, I don't know if and you know, I'm passionate as a father.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if I would have been like, you know what, we just going to have to lose our house and we're going to sleep on the floor, kids. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's whenever I look at Kathy Hughes, that's who I see. You know, and how do you have excuses after you meet somebody like that?
Yeah.
That's I've been telling earlier entrepreneurs. I say be careful, because I say your reasons sound like excuses to winners. Like, because to them it's like all these. I can't get the money because I've been denied twice.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't do this, but when you're talking to a different type of person, it is what it is. That's an excuse.
That's an excuse.
I tell people, you know, I have this thing about, I don't believe in like entrepreneurs are better than employees, or employees are better than entrepreneurs.
Definitely.
I don't. I said, it's what you do with the money that builds wealth more than how you make the money.
Right.
But that said, I have more respect for you if you say, I don't want to be an entrepreneur bad enough to do this. Don't give me a bunch of excuses. Just say, no, I'm not cut out for that life. I'm not for that life.
Right.
I'll do this life and build my wealth that way.
Yeah.
But don't tell me you want to be an entrepreneur, then you got turned down for a loan twice, and you're talking about you can't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That doesn't. I can't give that integrity.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And to your point about you always ask me to tell you these stories. The reason why it's important to read, I'm big in reading business biographies. I'm big, you know, whether it's your Dennis Kimbro, you get like a crash course because he does so many people. So if you ain't got time, read The Wealth Choice.
Yeah.
But you know, read The Man from Essence.
Yeah.
I tell you, it's still the best business biography I've ever read because it's so juicy. You know.
You know what I picked up last year?
What?
I've been meaning to read forever. I'm here in Atlanta. I've been meaning to read forever, and I never did. Building Atlanta, Herman J. Russell.
Oh yeah, that's a great book.
And I knew it was great. I've been hearing this, but I picked it up, couldn't put it. I think I was like 2 days. It's done.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, required reading. You know, because I know you're gonna share with your team, your audience, your fam. You got to read How to Succeed in Business Without Being White. That's Mr. Graves. You got to read Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun. You got to read Black Titan, A.G. Gaston.
Yes.
You got to read Herman J. Russell's book. And you got to read The Man from Essence. You got to read those books.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for Janice Bryant Howard's book to come out.
Oh, that's gonna be. Yeah.
That's going to be a great book. Yeah. That's another great entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you had her speak at.
We had to speak at TSB Live, the last in-person TSB Live we had, and she burnt it down. She burnt it down because not only was she so great, for us to be to say, hey, we got the first black woman to build $1 billion business, but she was so authentic.
You took the word out of my mouth.
And she was down home. Like they felt like this is, she's one of us.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Whenever, I mean, I'm so glad she's on social media because she takes that seriously. Yeah. You know, and I'm like, there's not enough people who have heard of Janice Bryant Howard, despite her being last time I checked, number 2 black-owned business, largest in the country, number 1 women. People think Oprah. I'm not dissing on Oprah. I said you need to know about Janice Bryant Howard. You need to know her story and how she started. Another person, she didn't start, but she's one, I think, 13 kids out of North Carolina. You know, her brother is super tight. Did you get to meet her brother?
I did.
Oh man, their relationship was beautiful. But the authenticity that she brings to the table, and if you could sit in the room and hear her talk and leave the room and feel like you don't need to be doing no better, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
I mean, as a human being, as a black person, she'd be like, no, excellence, just excellence.
So I'm gonna tell myself again. The other thing I had to start doing, because I pride myself on learning about black business. I had to get outside the borders of the U.S. Because I put a post in the Travis Hustle Profit Facebook group. This might be like 2 years ago or something. And I was like, what black entrepreneur would you like to, sit with or learn from or something? And I kept seeing his name pop up, and I was like, what is that, right? And I kept seeing the name pop up, and it wasn't a lot of times, but it was like, 3 or 4 times. And everybody else I knew, one name. When I looked it up, it was the richest black person in the world, Dan Gote.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I felt like, how could I not know? And then later on, like I posted in the group, I'm like, hey, do y'all know who the richest, black person in the world is, or the wealthiest, right? And most people's like, they get all kind of names, but very few. And to be authentic, most of the people that knew of him were from the continent of Africa.
Right.
So it wasn't even like people that were here, I know that. It's like, they knew, so they had a different tie-in and connection.
We were raised in this bubble, like almost all Americans, where we're so American-centric, we don't think outside that. But you know about Michael Lee Chin?
Yes. Only reason I know about him, Black Enterprise.
Right.
Same.
Canada and Jamaica. The black Warren Buffett. Or Warren Buffett might be the white one. Right. But I'm just saying, so when you talk about expanding not only who you surround yourself with, but also expanding your vision beyond, you start out small, your block, then beyond your neighborhood, then beyond your town, then beyond your state. And then we think we're being worldly if we get the whole country.
Right.
Like, we travel all around the country. My friend Jimmy Lee Tillman I was talking about, who's been all over the place. Yeah. She's like, you haven't been to Africa yet? I'm like, no. You haven't been to... I'm thinking of myself as well-traveled, but my travel has all been work-related, which limits you right there. And then I've been to the Caribbean, and that's travel, But we need to raise a world of children, and I know several people who are friends of mine who pushes this agenda, where we have our kids have passports. Yeah. My kids have passports because their mother's from Jamaica, so they're used to travel. But we got to broaden our vision beyond, even geographically beyond, just the United States or just the state we're from. Because to your point about being the smartest person, both of your point being the smartest person in the room, you could feel like you're really kicking butt if the only people you're around is the people in your block or in your hometown. Yeah. And we got to think bigger than that to accomplish the legacies.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, that's all I got for
today. Yeah. I got one person though, because it's one somebody I look up to. I like Magic Johnson.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that. I was thinking Magic, but
and you know why Magic though? Because he's such a powerhouse, but he's like low. Like he's just...
No, here's what makes Magic really great.
Yeah. And
it's a lesson that we can all learn.
Yeah.
And I can talk about Magic since before he retired, when Black Enterprise, Mr. Graves had the South Africa Pepsi franchise, and Magic was an original partner. And then when Magic got diagnosed with HIV, he stepped back out of it. But he was like, Mr. G was mentoring him. Magic understood, but one, that the most valuable relationship he could establish as an athlete was with business people. He's like, let me go get in the room while they want to be around Magic Johnson. So he started that journey before he ever knew what he was going to do after basketball. So by the time he came out, he already knew it was like, I'm not the smartest dude. Like I'm a basketball player. But he talk about surrounding yourself.
Yeah.
By the time he came out, Earl Grey, think of the people, the business people he had a relationship with, and the brands. He wasn't going there to sign autographs.
Right.
He was like, no, let's do this deal. How does this work? How does franchising work? How does the bottling business work? How does this work? And to this day, that's what he does. So when you talk to people, I didn't go to business school, I didn't go to college at all. My degree's not even in journalism, by the way. My degree's in art.
All right.
All my brains, if you will, expertise is because, thank God, I spent 30 years at Black Enterprise.
Yeah.
I've been spending all my time. How can you not learn? I get to talk to Reggie Lewis every day.
Right.
How can you not learn when I can pick up the phone and talk to John Johnson?
Yeah.
How can you not learn when Janice Bryan Hartwell knows you on a first name basis and she would tell you? How can you not learn? Yeah. And Magic Johnson understood and understands that. He's like his strength. He's not the smartest person. Not smart he's smart,
right?
But not like the expert in the room.
Right.
His advantage is he's not the expert and he don't want to be. But if you put me in the room with the expert, I bet you we can get something done. Yeah. So yeah. Magic understands.
Powerful. Yeah. Now I've always just loved the moves that he's made, sports, outside of sports, and I'm like, I don't, and I don't know if it's purposeful or not, but like a lot of times you kind of, he is going under the radar while he's building this $1 billion, enterprise.
What is purposeful, the point that part of it is purposeful, and I've had this conversation with him, is that he knows being Magic Johnson will open doors. Access is the first, getting in the room is the first thing. Yeah. And then bringing the right people in the room with you is the second thing.
Hey guys, this is Lamar Tyler, creator and founder of Traffic, Sales, and Profit. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Then scroll down below because I have links to us, right, me and Traffic, Sales, and Profit on our social platforms. I want to make sure you get all the free content, the free challenges, and information about our events. The best place to do that is on social. Joins tens of thousands of entrepreneurs just like you that are working to hit the next level in their businesses.